So after the Invincible War, the variants turn on Angstrom and decide to try and torture him, because why not? Their plan quickly takes a left turn, and Angstrom hits them with his flying robo-balls and somehow pushes them into the portal, which drops them in this abandoned dimension. Then some other things happen. Mark has his fight with Conquest, blah blah blah. But while that was happening, I sat there wondering what happened to the variants and if the show would eventually come back to them. But I'm too impatient to wait for all that. So instead, I just went straight to the comics to find out what happened. Buckle your seatbelts, because this was actually pretty insane. So let's just get into it. Big surprise to no one, Angstrom's back, and he's ready to take revenge. Third time's the charm, baby. He finds Eve, and he gets his flying robo-balls around her neck and uses her to lure in his favorite superhero, Invincible. I just like to mention real quick and point out how yammed up and thick Eve is right here. Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust. Anyways, Invincible falls for it again. He flies in, and to another dimension he goes. He crash lands into the dimension and looks around to see where he is, but stops when he sees something that grabs his attention. He turns to find Sinister Mark grubbing out on the remains of the other variants. Sinister Mark is even kind enough to offer Mark a bite off the thigh, which he says is the best part. Mark realizes who it is, and Sinister Mark rambles on about how him and the other variants waited for weeks for help, but got desperate and hungry, so they started eating the others. Mark continues to piece everything together, but Sinister Mark is just off his gourd and crazy from being stranded for so long, so he doesn't even think Mark is real. But he grabs Mark and realizes he is real, and that means a fresh meal for him. Mark hits the variant with a nice juicer to get him off of him, and it sends Sinister Mark flying through the air. But Sinister Mark says he's bored and glad Mark's putting up a fight. Mark tells the variant that he could help him get back to his dimension. But Sinister Mark isn't even listening. He tells Mark he hasn't gotten weaker, but rather gotten stronger from being stranded for so long. Again, Mark tries to tell him that he can help him, but Sinister Mark is just here to eat. Mark takes off and tries to flee, but Sinister Mark has that fast and furious extra gear he can shift to and catches up and grabs Mark. He then throws him into the ground. The variant tells Mark that he's been through some. They might be the same, but he's a lot stronger. As he's saying this, someone actually comes in and smacks him out of the air. That someone turns out to be Mohawk Mark. He's been alive this whole time and was hiding from Sinister Mark. He tells Mark to follow him if he wants to live, because that hit won't slow Sinister Mark down for very long. While flying away, Mohawk Mark tells Mark that Sinister Mark is too strong, but together they could stop him. He also tells Mark that after a while, they all turned to cannibalism. They ate the first guy because he was a jerk anyways. He says he hated the guy so much that he almost didn't want to eat him. I don't know which variant he's talking about here, but you gotta be a serious dick for all these evil douchebags to not like you. He realizes he's rambling on too much, but it's been so long since he's talked to someone, so talking to Mark was kinda nice. But they get rudely interrupted when Sinister Mark finds them and tackles Mark in the air. Mark gives him a prime Tony Ferguson elbow to the lips and tells him a 2v1 isn't looking good for him. Mohawk Mark then comes in and smacks him into the ground while yelling at him that they could have all worked together and gotten out of this place. He then smacks him with a good few juicers until Sinister Mark is sent to the Shadow Realm. Mark jumps on him and pulls him off to try and stop him, but it was too late. Sinister Mark was already dead. After chilling out for a second, a portal opens up in the distance, and Mark and Mohawk Mark go through it to escape this hell.